Today, we are going to learn about natural solutions for hormonal imbalances. Before we begin, I want to remind you that the information in this presentation is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a medical provider. It is not intended as medical advice. It is a sharing of the knowledge and information that I've acquired from my research and personal experience working with countless people. I also encourage you to make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with a qualified healthcare professional team. My name is Dr. Michelle Gamble. I'm an integrative wellness mentor. I focus on emphasizing the therapeutic relationships that integrate both conventional and what we term alternative methodologies. I also take into consideration that I'm always working to promote the natural healing ability within each individual, integrating the body, mind, heart, and soul. As a mentor, I focus on my role as an educator to teach you how to become empowered as your own physician. My mission is to transform the world through the healing power of love, one relationship at a time. This brings me to why this particular presentation is phenomenal to me, because a lot of people don't realize that when we're talking about hormones, we are really talking about relationships, how one aspect of the body relates to or communicates with another aspect of the body. The reason why this presentation is so important to me is because countless people come to me with various types of hormonal imbalances. Unfortunately, in our culture, we look towards these imbalances, we label them. However, the symptoms are not the key to healing. The symptoms are only breadcrumbs that can lead us into a deeper understanding of what a person's needs are. I'll give you one example. Recently, a young gentleman came to me and he complained of having very little energy, low libido, not motivated at all when it comes to sex and sexuality. One way of looking at it would be, oh, it must be an imbalance in testosterone. He must be low in testosterone. Let's give him some more testosterone. You know, that is exactly the same kind of attitude that we have as we grow older and we go through menopause for women. There is this concept of, oh, I'm low on my progesterone, or oh, my estrogen is imbalanced. And we look for hormonal replacements instead of really digging deep and being detectives to find out why there is an imbalance. In the case of this young man, I suggested that he do a test which is called the Dutch test, dried urine test for complete hormones. When we got back the results of the Dutch test, we actually realized that not only did he have enough testosterone, he had too much testosterone. That was not the core of his problem. Moving forward, let's first talk about what are hormones. Well, the body produces hormones to serve as messengers. Remember what I said, to be able to communicate one part of the body with another part of the body. It helps to regulate all the different aspects of our being, from digestion to metabolism, our breathing, our sleep, our movement, reproduction, stress, growth, moods. Everything has to do with how we communicate via our hormones. There are many hormones at work during the day. They're digestive hormones, sex hormones, mood hormones, also neurotransmitters. Today, we're going to focus on one category. We're going to focus on reproductive hormones, estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. Let us look at understanding some of these hormones. Please keep in mind when I speak about sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, these not only apply to females, they also apply to guys. I know a lot of times we don't think about guys having estrogen and progesterone, but they do. And a lot of times we don't think about our ladies having testosterone, but we do. And imbalances in those areas lead to a variety of symptomology. In terms of estrogen, for women and for men, but more so for women, estrogen is related to the production of breast tissue. For all of us, it also relates to the synthesis and the function of our neurotransmitters that affect our sleep, our mood, our memory, and our libido, and our cognitive function. Another aspect of estrogen that many people don't realize is that estrogen also helps in building healthy bones. That is why it is very, very critical that as we age, especially for us as women, that we pay attention to our levels of estrogen, because if certain types of estrogen go too low, it will impact the body's ability to build healthy bones, leading to osteoporosis. I know a lot of times when we think about osteoporosis, we focus on calcium, 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 and in reality, that is not the main issue. The main issue is what is happening behind the scenes. When we look at progesterone, we also look at the proper development and functioning of the breasts and the female reproductive system. But we also look at progesterone for men and women in terms of the ability to bind to certain receptors that exert a calming and sedative effect. That is why proper progesterone balance relates to our sleep. As we get older, sometimes, especially for women, our progesterone levels tend to dip, and we start to notice that we have moments of sleeplessness, insomnia. This can be related to your progesterone levels. Progesterone also, interestingly enough, helps to protect against seizures. Now let's talk a little bit about testosterone. Testosterone in women is actually produced by our ovaries and our adrenal glands, and it helps to enhance our libido and our sexual response for all of us, not just for women. It also helps in strengthening our ligaments and building our muscles and our bones, and assists with brain function and helping us to have more of an assertive behavior and a sense of well-being and optimism. Again, these relate to not only our females, but also our men. Let us look at understanding the imbalances that may occur. Because whenever there is an imbalance where one of two things may happen. Either there is a deficiency or there is an excess. In either case, it is important to look for the underlying reasons as to why there is a deficiency or why there is an excess. Then there may also be an imbalance in terms of the ratio between the estrogen and the progesterone, or the testosterone as it relates to the estrogen and the progesterone. So sometimes it's not necessarily the case that there is a deficiency of one or more of the hormones, but rather that their relationship, remember I said I love talking about relationships, the relationship between the two or the three is off. When we look at hormonal deficiencies, as I said, please do not jump into believing that you just simply need to do hormone replacement therapy. Please look at why there is a deficiency. Because remember that example that I gave you with the young gentleman, and I said that in his case, it was not a deficiency of testosterone, but rather an excess of testosterone. And in his case, because there were certain pathways within the testosterone, the metabolites of testosterone, where he was producing more of the weaker types of testosterone as opposed to the stronger types of testosterone. In his case, we needed to work on shifting that pathway so that he would be able to produce more of the stronger testosterones. And then there was also a case that I had with a young woman, and I call her young woman, even though she was getting ready, or should I say, at the beginning of her journey through menopause. And in her case, Her different sex hormones were low, but it had nothing to do with the sex hormones themselves. It had more to do with the fact that the resources in her body were being shuttled over to create her stress hormones because she was highly stressed, and combined with the fact that a lot of the precursors were being blocked. She had excessive cholesterol that was not being channeled down into the creation of her hormones. So for her, giving her more hormones would not have fixed the situation. In fact, it probably would have compounded the problem in her case. Which leads us to the question of, what are some of the causes of hormonal imbalance? Well, there are many different causes, as you can probably understand from the examples that I've given thus far. One of the major causes that we don't tend to think about is stress, emotional, mental stress. Remember what I said, when the body was creating all of these stress hormones for the woman in my previous example, that meant that the resources that were needed to create the sex hormones were not available. Another possible cause of hormonal imbalance is pain and hidden inflammation. And last but not least, dietary stress. What types of foods are you eating, and how do those affect the production of different hormones in your body? Other factors that may influence hormonal imbalance include things like synthetic hormones. Synthetic hormones that are, or what we call hormone disruptors from toxic environmental products. Do you realize that the plastics that you use get absorbed into your foods, and they start to go into the body and mimic different hormones, particularly estrogen? By mimicking these different hormones, they go into these receptor sites. That is why we refer to them as being hormone disruptors. Also, many cosmetics, phthalates. These are interesting chemicals in our environment that disrupt our hormones. For us as women especially, this is very critical, because we as women use tremendous amount of chemicals in our skin products as well as in our cosmetics that compound the issue of hormonal imbalance within our person. You may at this point be asking yourself, do I have a hormonal imbalance? Well, there are a variety of different symptoms, which include things like night sweats, irregular periods, heavy periods, hot flashes, unexplained weight gain or the inability to lose weight or gain weight, thinning of the hair, mood swings, painful intercourse, other types of sexual dysfunctions, and this is just to name a few. One of the things that I suggest that you might want to consider is calling me up and asking me, what are some different ways that you can assess your hormonal balance and test for hormonal imbalances? I've told you before about one of my favorite tests, which is called the Dutch test, DUTCH, dried urine test for complete hormones. And then there are a variety of different assessments that you can do to determine whether or not there's a possibility of hormonal imbalances, including looking at blood chemistry panels. Because remember when I said to you that we're not just talking about the sex hormones in terms of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, we also look at what are ways in which the other hormonal pathways impact the sex hormones. Things such as your blood sugar regulation affect your hormonal production and your hormonal balance. That is why one of the first questions we need to ask ourselves is, how is my diet affecting my hormones? In our nation, we have what we term as the standard American diet, which is high in white flour, refined carbohydrates, caffeine, and sugar, all of which destroy the endocrine system, the hormonal system, and create imbalances within the hormones. Our body requires proper nutrition, not only in terms of what we eat, but how we eat and when we eat. The other thing to consider is the amount of pesticides that are included in our food and the amount of hormones that are included in our food, particularly the meat products. Let's start by thinking about breakfast. What type of breakfast did you have this morning? Was it the traditional American breakfast, high in carbohydrates, say waffle, oatmeal, orange juice? And these are things that, many of us will say, oh, well, Michelle, I ate my whole grain waffles, or, I had my wonderful oatmeal and I had wonderful fresh orange juice. However, we have to start to consider the fact that this may indeed have created a spike in your blood glucose. And that spike in your blood glucose then requires the body to respond with an equal amount of spiking in our insulin. And that insulin starts to cause all kinds of havoc, not only within our stress pathways, but also in terms of our growth hormones, and ultimately in terms of our sex hormones, and indeed all of our hormonal system. Then we look at lunch. Many times we just skip lunch because we're stressing and rushing and working and doing all kinds of things. And if we do decide to eat lunch, we tend to eat crappy stuff for lunch. This is the time when a lot of us go out to the fast food restaurants because of our quote unquote busy lives. The challenge is to be very strategic in planning our meals so as not to succumb to the temptation of fast foods and things of that nature. By doing so, we're able to maintain balance and give ourselves the proper nourishment that we need to be able to promote the proper hormonal balance in our body. Last but not least, there is dinner. I want to stress here that dinner is important not just because of the nutrition, but because of the opportunity that it gives us to be able to gather together in our families to give ourselves, again, the relationships that help us to be healthy and prosperous and emotionally and spiritually fulfilled. Throughout this process, we focus on creating a nourishment of the body, mind, heart, and soul. And yes, there is room for dessert. I just want to impress upon you that there is the ability to have healthy desserts. Keep in mind that you want to minimize the amount of added sugar, and you always want to incorporate that sense of balance, not only in terms of giving yourself a little pleasure, but making sure that it's not a guilty pleasure. And if it is a guilty pleasure, to make sure that it is minimalized and therefore a point of moderation in your life and not excess. Now, let's talk about sleep, because many times one of the things that gives us a key that there's a hormonal imbalance is our sleep. When our sleep becomes disrupted, that is a sign that there may be an underlying hormonal imbalance. And this is a catch-22, because if you do not sleep properly, this then causes a hormonal imbalance. We need to be more mindful about not only how much sleep that we're getting, but also when we choose to get that sleep. I encourage you to pay attention to what we call the circadian rhythms in terms of going to sleep at around 9, 10 o'clock, 10:30 the latest, in order to have a minimum of 8 hours of sleep. And for our teenagers, if you have teenage children or grandchildren, keep in mind that they need even more sleep, interestingly enough. And Lord knows our teenagers are chronically sleep deprived, just like the rest of us. In any case, with that minimum of 8 hours, it gives us the ability to reset and recharge our bodies. One of the ways of promoting hormonal balance for women is what we call seed cycling. And in seed cycling, it is based on the idea that seeds contain various nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that help the body to promote hormonal balance, help the body not only in terms of the production of certain hormones, but also the metabolism and the release of different hormones. In the seed cycling, what we stress is that in the follicular phase of a woman's menstrual period, which is days 1 to 14, this is a time when it would be advantageous to take either a tablespoon of ground flax seeds or pumpkin seeds to be able to help to promote the production of our healthy omega fats, as well as to bind with excess estrogen so that the body can release it. Then, in the luteal phase of the cycle, days 15 through 28, this would be an optimal time for you to take either 1 tablespoon of sunflower or sesame seeds. By doing so, we help to create that balance between the progesterone and the estrogen at different times within the cycle when they are most needed. Movement also helps us to promote balance of our hormonal system. What we are coming to realize is that short strength training exercises are somewhat better than longer endurance types of exercises for hormonal balance, especially hormones that pertain to the metabolism of glucose within the body. So keep it short and sweet. That is why you see where we have intense high interval training, where you do intense activity for 3 to 5 minutes, and that's it. We also encourage you to consider strength training at least 2 or 3 times a day. And even if you're going to do cardio sessions, to keep them short and to consider, as I said, using interval training. Last but not least, to incorporate movements such as yoga to help you with hormonal balance by helping you to release and relieve your stress. One of the things we want to pay particular attention to is the effect that alcohol consumption can have on hormonal imbalance. Do you realize that alcohol can cause tremendous disruptions within the body, not just in terms of your blood sugar metabolism, but also in terms of your stress and in terms of the levels of your estrogen and your progesterone. So please keep that in mind. If you're going to drink, be at least moderate in your drinking, because the drinking, as I said, affects many, many aspects of your being, from your cognitive ability to your blood glucose metabolism, to your stress regulation, and to your sex hormone metabolism and imbalances. One of the ways to support healthy balance within the hormonal system is through acupuncture. Did you realize that you can use acupuncture to help to regulate the levels of FSH and LH, which communicate between the brain and the hypothalamus pituitary sex organ axis. And by doing so, this also helps to adjust the thyroid gland and to bring balance to the estrogen and progesterone in the body. Last but not least, it helps to increase the blood flow to the sexual organs and to relieve stress. And stress is always a killer and a disruptor of hormonal balance. Other soothing ways to promote hormonal balance is by taking a moment to just breathe. And let's just take a deep cleansing breath in and release. Take another deep cleansing breath in and release. And our breath is the first step towards having a meditative practice. And meditation is always suggested as a tool that can be used to relieve stress, which in turn helps to bring balance to the body's hormones. Remember, it's not just about the food. It's not just about the exercise. It's about enjoying life and celebrating life, celebrating your success. And in celebrating your successes, you're able to promote overall well-being and health, not only for your person, but for the ones that you love. Now, we've covered a lot here today, and I know that you may be feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but that's okay, because you came here for a reason, to be able to be more informed, to make better decisions concerning your hormones. Know that you are on your way to making a difference in your life and to being able to have a sense of hope and inspiration, that there are tools and resources available to help you to get started. If you'd like to learn more about what you need to do specifically in your case, feel free to call me, or feel free to visit our website for more videos such as this, or perhaps to book an appointment to have a conversation with me about what your next best steps can be. Thank you for attending. It means a lot to be able to share this with you and with others. Now, I encourage you to make a plan for how you're going to implement at least one or two of the strategies that I've shared with you in this presentation. I would love to hear from you. So feel free to email me any kinds of comments, questions, or concerns that you may have. Remember, we are here to help. Peace, blessings, and prosperity.